From the Fox 29 studios, this is Good Day Philadelphia.
Society has been talking about the opioid epidemic and drug addiction in general and how it affects people's lives so much that to many it's kind of starting to become white noise.
Our next guest, though, certainly commands your attention. We're going to introduce you to a man certainly looks familiar here, Brandon Novak, a pro skateboarder, MTV star. While his personal life spiraled out of control to the point that he never thought that he would get clean. This is just part of the very moving documentary, Dream Seller. Take a look.
Skateboarding, I lived it, I slept it, I breathed it, I dreamed it. From the day that I got my first skateboard to the day I put the first needle in my arm.
I met Novak at Cheap Skates when I was about 12 years old. He was with Bucky Lasik, which was like one of my favorite skaters.
Bucky Lasik, he rode for PAL at the time. He saw the skills that I had, and he recognized something in me.
Bucky was creating moves on vert that no one had ever done, and very few people have done since. He was telling me about this kid in Baltimore, Brandon Novak.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically my little sidekick that we just skated all the time.
He was mentoring him for the most part, and grooming him for a skate career. Whenever you saw Brandon, you're like, whoa! That's really unbelievable for a kid to do that kind of thing.
He was the innocent little cute kid that shredded.
When he turned about 15, like he just kind of disappeared, and I would ask Bucky when I'd run into him, like, where the hell's Novak? Like, what's he up to? Like, I think he's on heroin.
Get rid of him right now.
I think he's on heroin. Well, Brandon Novak is now a paid employee at the Benyon Treatment Center right here in Philadelphia, and he's so committed to what he's doing that he asked us to put out his cell phone number on the screen. So as we're talking, you're okay with this?
Absolutely.
We're gonna put it out there because
Absolutely.
that's how important this is to you to reach out to people.
Yeah, you know, I was that alcoholic addict that was deemed unhelpable or unfixable. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. I was on life support for 7 days. But the reality is the disease of addiction does not discriminate. Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same. And 1 out of 7 people will be affected. My mother was a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House who practices pensions and benefits. I was a professional skateboarder. I had been in movies that broke box office records. I'm a New York Times selling author. At the end of my addiction, I was a 35-year-old homeless man who walked into my 13th inpatient treatment center, worldly possessions consisting of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant that all fit into a bag that doubles my pillow, and 4 cigarette butts that I dug out of a receptacle.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind when you look at that, the kid, if you will, on screen?
You know, I just see, I wasn't the guy that came in with like low self-esteem and was upset that I never had a chance at life, because I actually excelled at everything that I've done. But what happens is no one ever really told me the end results of doing that first drink or that first line of cocaine that seems socially acceptable. No one told me that with that, you know, at the end of my run, my mother will be praying to God that either I'm cured, she's killed, or I'm killed by my disease of addiction. You know what I mean? No one told me where this could lead up to.
But that began at 10 years old, your first drink.
Yeah, yeah.
10 years old.
Yeah. You know, because I was very successful at a young age, and I ran with an older group of people. So there was no accountability in my life. My accountability was to my team manager of Pal Peralta, who was in California. And me showing up for work was like sending in a good video part, or calling and checking in and saying, hey, I filmed this trick, I did this. You know, there was no like 9 to 5, be in when the streetlights come on type deal.
But you have a relationship with Tony Hawk, and it's interesting because you talk about how at one point he gave you an ultimatum, right?
Yeah.
And he said, look, you either have to quit drugs or quit this life.
Yeah. And I, you know, I'd have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit, because I'm that kind of alcoholic that anything.
So you quit everything. I mean, you're already making so much at this point. At that point.
Everything, you name it, because it became an inconvenience. It became a burden. It did not help me get one more bag, bottle, or pill. And you'll hear in my story that anything between me and that drug or drink must and will go, and it's not personal. It's just business.
But
what was his wait, hold on, sorry. What was his reaction then when you said, you know what, I'm going to walk away from all of this?
I think he was just kind of dumbfounded. You know, he didn't understand the disease of addiction, and rightfully so. You know, it's like me trying to tell you to understand a disease that you don't have. You can sympathize and you can empathize with it, but in reality, you'll never really know until you walk in someone like my shoes.
So what are we not getting as a society here? I mean, it took you a while. From 10 years old, you had the first drink. You were full heroin addict. I think you said at the age of 16. You came from addiction as far as on your father's side. You saw the devastation it caused your family.
Yeah, I mean, I lived with that cautionary tale. I disliked that man. I swore I would never do drugs and alcohol because I saw what it made him do to me, to my mother, to my brother, to my sister. And lo and behold, I became that man. But what happened with me and what I do the exact opposite now because I help people for a living is no one really talked to me with empathy or sympathy or compassion. They always talked to me or at me, but not with me. And the reality is no one is exempt from this thing. You know what I mean? Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. The fact that I'm not is A, miraculous, and B, it defies logic. But I've been granted this gift, and it's time for me to honor this gift, and not just when it's convenient for me. So therefore, me giving my number out when it rings all night,
I want to put it back up.
What that is, it's me being divinely inconvenienced.
What do you say to the young adult, the teenager, the older adult who's looking at you right now, who has an addiction or they're dealing with someone who does?
That your history doesn't have to dictate your future. As long as you're breathing, it's never too late. And the disease of addiction is not a death sentence, you know? I'm taking part in opening a treatment center in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and it's called Banyan Treatment Center. And we just started this new campaign where we're dedicated to help anyone that calls me, and we'll go above and beyond. And we're giving out scholarships to one a month for the next year. You know, and that's just one of the... I'm kind of like the concierge in the treatment center world. I have a lot of ways and means.
No, but that's wonderful. Whatever it takes, all the different avenues.
Because people always say to me, what's the answer? What's the answer? I travel all over the nation and world, if you will. What's the answer to... And if I had the answer, I would bottle it up and be a billionaire a billion times over.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of trial and error right now. And lip service just isn't enough. Because it's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. 152 people today in the nation will die as a direct result of the disease of an opioid overdose. And it's preventable. It's worse than the HIV outbreak. It's worse than drunk driving. This is the deal, man.
No simple answer, but making a difference.
We appreciate the work that you're doing. You also have a book, Dream Seller, and a kind of full circle because Tony Hawk wrote the foreword for it.
Absolutely. So. You know, I was that guy that was deemed unhelpable or unfixable. And no one saw this coming, including myself. I always say, thank God, God is God, and I'm not God, because I surely would have messed this whole thing up. You know?
You made it through. It's a journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
And putting your phone number out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably already ringing.
Please.
All right. Thank you.